Schizophrenics of Reddit, what were the first signs of your break from reality and how would you warn others for early detection? I started hearing songs on the radio and thinking I was being given secret messages by them. Any particular songs and messages? It would be interesting to know if there were any singers whose songs correlated with a certain subject. I don't want to give away too many personal details, but a lot of songs on the radio. I can't remember them all, but I'd wager at least a half dozen artists. I thought I had a special relationship with the singer of a particular band, and thought one of their albums was a roadmap for how I was supposed to behave. Each song in chronological order described various states and actions I should be taking in my life. First thing was hearing voices of people I knew calling my name when they couldn't possibly be there. Like, I would hear a family member or friend that lives 3 hours away by car. Then I started seeing objects, often while driving. Once on a lonely Nebraska night on Highway 2, a giant radio tower suddenly appeared in front of me in the road, and then dissipated when I drove through it. I also see silhouettes of people occasionally. Worst visual I have gotten was a very real-looking man trying to break into my house during the day and it freaked me the duck out. Happened twice edit, also blood-curdling screaming edit too. Guys, I wanted to thank you for all the support and questions I have received in light of this post. I wish I could sit down and have an in-depth conversation with all of you, but I simply don't have the time to reply to every comment I get, sadly. I have answered a few questions posed to me and I hope that helps you out. That sounds like torture. Life is hard enough without having to doubt your eyes and ears. Hope you're doing well, friend. As someone who is schizophrenia, reading all the comments on this thread made me feel about 5,000 times less alone than usual. That being said, for me, it was thinking that all my friends were plotting against me. So much so that I started digging as hard as I could to find as much dirt on everyone as possible. Auditory hallucinations followed that pretty quickly. At its worst, I began misremembering important life events, only to find out years later that what I felt I so vividly remembered to be true, was actually not. But I guess that's psychosis for you. Meds, therapy, and a fiancé and friends who have your back all work wonders though. They don't judge me when things get rough. This sounds like a joke, but it's my real advice. If the shadow people acknowledge you, maybe see a doctor. Otherwise, just get some sleep. Edit, so like I have a million responses in my inbox, and it's ducking making me anxious. I won't be responding to any of them directly. 1. If you're concerned, see a doctor. I went to my GP first and he referred me to specialists. 2. The reason it's bad if they acknowledge you is because if you're just sleep deprived or mentally wonky, the shadow people tend to disappear when you focus on them, and don't appear to be up to any real funny business. 3. Shadow people. What are they? Humanoids of questionable origin and intent, also made of shadows. 4. For the one guy who was offended. Why? I'm describing symptoms. Illy though. 5. Finally, no matter their cause, the shadow people can't hurt you. If they become overwhelming, I stand by my above advice and suggest trying to sleep it off. I'm laying in bed and now I'm kinda scared of the shadow people. Lamau. My grandma got dementia a few years ago and while it's quite sad, we found out in a funny way. My friend who is a bit superstitious was helping my family move to grandma's town and me and him went to see her. She was normal enough but kept mentioning the shadow babies in the other room. Freaked my friend right the duck out. It was similar with my grandma, except instead of shadow people, she was convinced my sister and her friends were having a sleepover in the next room, which was empty. That was a bummer afternoon. That's almost exactly what happened to my aunt. She thought her son and his friends were having a party in her house and claimed one of his friends would come over frequently to visit her during the day. All her kids had moved out. FYI. Sometimes people get signs of dementia confused with a UTI. When the elderly have a UTI they get anxious and confused. My mother is 85. She will just out of the blue ask, did I see that man looking in her window, or what is all the loud music playing for? My favorite one is that my daughter has a twin and she is hiding behind the chairs talking to her. At this point we take a sample of urine to the doctor's office and 3 hours later they call and inform us that she has a UTI. After about 3 days of medicine she is back to her quite sweet self. So the moral to this story is always check for a UTI before you place her or him in a home for dementia. Seconded. This is a thing. I used to work in an aged home and the oldies always get loopy with a UTI. If a resident's behavior has changed seemingly overnight, it's the first thing you'd test for. Some homes aren't clued into this, however, and will immediately recognize it as early signs of dementia. That's how the poor things end up with kidney infections that can easily kill them. Diagnose schizoaffective bipolar here. Basically, I have both schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. It started when I was 5 years old. I would see dead people, feel the presence of ghosts, smell rust and metals, hear voices and thoughts of other people. As a teenager, I thought I was a psychic. As an adult, I started a job as a psychic medium. I legit thought I could predict the future. One day I just decided I'm ducking crazy and got a psych eval. Been on medication ever since and super grounded. My major triggers are fourth wall breaking video games and TV shows. The Truman Show is also horrifying for me. For myself, it was messages from Nemesis, the Greek goddess. Was convinced I was her chosen one and to follow her. Also, was constantly seeing shadow people images constantly surrounding me and hearing my name called constantly when not hearing Nemesis speaking to me. #X200B, went into therapy thinking I was bipolar, ended up finding out I was schizophrenic. #X200B, luckily on medication and doing better. Nowadays I struggle with the symptoms medicine can't help with, like anxiety, depression and all the other symptoms. The antipsychotics can't target alone. #X200B, honestly the stigma and having to explain to people why I'm jobless despite being a father husband is the worst part. Feel like a failure many times a day due to being disabled. #X200B, edit, what a thing to wake up to. Thank you all for the support and advice as well as kindness. This is so amazing to read through and see so much kindness. Edit 2, continued to be floored by all the positive words, thank you all. Also edited as saw some thought with how I worded it that I meant the drugs can't help with schizophrenia where I meant the other symptoms of the disease. 100% believe that medication helps, as no, it helps me get to the level I am functional for my family. Sorry if that was unclear and still working my way down reading everything, but wanted to clear that up. Stay-at-home moms aren't worthless, so neither are dads. I'm sure you still contribute, even when you're not a breadwinner. Edit, I'd also like to add that domestic work is undervalued on so many dimensions, and having the stigma of mental health not being a real disability can add to that. Raising children and managing a household is one of the most essential parts of our society, yet stay-at-home spouses are marked unproductive as they don't make a monetary wage. For anyone looking to read more on the topic of domesticity and devaluation, I recommend The Unproductive Housewife, Her Evolution in 19th Century Economic Thought. This is a primarily feminist text, but the concepts easily be applied to domestic men as well. #X200B. Domestic labor is still real labor. People who've lived on their own will know. I'm having a real tough time with that at the moment. Was a homebody freelancer and spent most of my free time cleaning and organizing the place. Now that I'm working, especially in a field requiring tons of networking, I barely find the time to wash my clothes, let alone dust and clean around the house. There's always the weekend though. It started with not needing to sleep as much. Countless days of being awake. Driving endlessly to pointless destinations. Disregarding police authority. Was it disregarding because you felt they had no authority or that you felt it was inconsequential? It was more of a feeling that I was above the law and the police were hindering me from accomplishing my goals. Hard to say where it started. I was very isolated at the time. I was just very confused, I think. More than hallucinations, I saw meaning behind everything and every coincidence. What that meaning was, didn't really know, eventually just decided it was my brain telling me I'm schizophrenic. Which I was very lucky to do. I went in for treatment of depression and was in the psych ward for 2 weeks, then probably a month after that I asked my doctor what was really wrong with me. It was pretty funny thinking back on it. I don't know how she didn't laugh in my face. Like, bitch, you've been talking to yourself and thought the TV was communicating things to you. You're probably going to get better answers from loved ones of schizophrenics, seeing as it's a coin toss whether or not we have any insight at all. Edit. If you're worried you are not seeing reality the same way other people are or think you might be schizophrenic, please see a doctor ASAP. It might be nothing like people in this thread keep saying, but it might not. You lose nothing but time and maybe money if you see a doc about it and don't have it. You might lose your sanity forever if you don't. She probably didn't laugh because it was the first time you finally noticed something was wrong. She was probably relieved and hopeful. Well, that and it's as routine as taking someone's order as for a McDonald's employee when you work with people with mental illness. We see that shit every day. Yeah, can I get a large fry? Dister, I'm sorry but we are in the kitchen right now, not McDonald's, so I can make you lunch if you are hungry and maybe we can get fries when personal needs shopping happens on Thursday. Does that sound fair to you? I'll just take an insure. This guy hospitals.